believers often don't seem to understand the nature of their claims, or that their claims are merely claims unless they're able to back up those claims with evidence equal to the claim. So, for instance, an extraordinary claim requires extraordinary evidence. A supernatural claim requires equally supernatural evidence. A claim about something being objective, such as morality, would then require objective evidence. You get it, right? For a while now, someone named Steve, with multiple YouTube accounts all beginning with the name Steve, he and I have been going back and forth in the comments about objective morality, which he claims to have access to because he believes in the Christian God, an allegedly unerring source of moral truth. And I keep asking him to objectively demonstrate that this being exists, is unerring, and that he, Steve, has genuine access to that being's will. Fortunately, Steve provided us with his definition of the word objective, as he uses it and thinks of it. Steve says objective is, quote, a universal truth that exists independently of human opinion, belief, or perception, end quote. I'm not sure about the universal truth part of that definition, as I'm not sure how we'd know the universality of any alleged truth, given our lack of omniscience. But for the sake of argument, let's just run with Steve's definition. Steve goes on to tell us that, quote, the religious have a plethora of moral sources to pick from, but once they do, they have an objective foundation to work from, end quote. He followed that up with, quote, and because of that, most everything the religious claim is grounded in a truth, end quote. Okay, all right. Okay, come on, stop laughing. Stop laughing, that's not nice. As previously mentioned, Steve also claims to have, quote, an unerring source for objective, outside of man's mind, morality from an unerring source, God, end quote. As you can see, we have a shit ton of claims to evaluate in light of Steve's definition of objective, a universal truth that exists independently of human opinion, belief, or perception. Let's take this claim from Steve first. The religious have a plethora of moral sources to pick from. So apparently, according to Steve, any religious moral source will do in terms of getting you to objective morality, Muslim, Hindu, Mormon, etc.? Seems a strange claim coming from a Christian. But with that plethora of moral sources, how do we objectively know which one to pick? And how do we know which, if any of them, is an objective moral source? Another commenter asked, who is objectively right? Steve's answer was, quote, that's why Christians are a one-God religion, end quote. So we've narrowed things down a bit. Hinduism, despite being a religious moral source, is out of the running because it's polytheistic. The Mormons are out too, obviously. But we've already made an irrational leap. How do we know objectively that this plethora of moral sources the religious have is anything beyond the mere opinion of the creators and practitioners of those religions? How do we objectively know that those moral sources connect to and with an unerring source of moral truth? Clearly, Steve is talking about a God, but I'm not even sure he's talking about the Christian God specifically. Now, I went on Google Scholar. I used the regular Google machine. I asked various AI bots and even called friends who work in the sciences. And so far, we have yet to discover any objective, demonstrable evidence for a God or gods. So the religious, with their plethora of moral sources, are picking their sources subjectively. They can't do anything but, because no one can objectively demonstrate that their moral source or God exists. Steve says that Christians, quote, have an objective foundation from an unerring source that they use, God, not man. What is it atheists have again? End quote. Do you though, Steve? That's the question. Without demonstrating that you have an unerring moral God as your source for morality, all you can say is, I believe I have an unerring moral source. Well, I believe there's a pony in my backyard. I can't demonstrate that, but she's an unerring moral source too. Even if we had objective evidence of some God's existence, how could we objectively know that such a being is an unerring source of moral truth, or that such a thing exists or is possible? I searched my Bible for the phrase unerring source of moral truth and couldn't find anything. But even if I did, that would only tell me what people say about God. That would be nothing more than human opinion, belief, and perception. Subjective, according to Steve. Steve really, really, really wants his morality to be objective. Which means nothing more than Steve really, really, really wants his subjectively chosen moral source and the values flowing from that source to be the right, perfect, and unerring source. Who doesn't? Unfortunately, claiming you're right based on something you merely believe won't get you there. And that's what we'll talk about next time. Until then, I'm me. Thanks for watching.